Hello, friends. The story of Naxalism represents one of India's most complex and enduring internal challenges. It is a classic lesson of how not to fight for justice. It also exemplifies the consequences of government's indifference to people's aspirations and grievances. Naxalism emerged from a small uprising in 1967 to become a radical movement that continues to influence the nation's socio-political landscape. It was a disruptive movement that began as a protest against feudal oppression but evolved into a broader insurgency against the Indian state. It derived its name from the village of Naxalbari in West Bengal. Communist leaders Charu Majumdar, Kanu Sanyal, and Jangal Santhal led the Naxalbari uprising, which spread almost throughout the country. These leaders broke away from the Communist Party of India Marxist or CPIM to address the fundamental issues of landlord exploitation and feudal oppression in rural India. Their primary goal was the redistribution of land to poor peasants and tribal communities, reflecting a deeper struggle against systemic inequality. The Naxalbari uprising serves as a crucial case study of the movement's early phase. Local tribals, inspired by Charu Majumdar's ideology, launched an armed revolt against landlords who refused to distribute land. However, the government suppressed the uprising, forcing Majumdar and other leaders underground. Despite its short duration, the uprising became a symbol of resistance and inspired similar movements across several states. The movement drew heavily from Maoist ideology, particularly Mao Zedong's strategy of protracted people's war. This approach stressed upon a prolonged guerrilla warfare against the state. They implemented the strategy through three phases: use of defensive tactics in the face of overwhelming odds, create stalemate, and then go on the offensive when conditions were favorable. The Naxalites adopted these tactics by establishing bases in rural areas. They mobilized landless peasants and tribals and formed People's Liberation Guerrilla armies modeled after the Chinese Red Army. Charu Mazumdar's historic eight documents laid the ideological foundation for Naxalism. It promoted total rejection of parliamentary democracy and advocated guerrilla warfare. They endorsed targeted killing of class enemies. And who are these class enemies? Obviously, landlords and rich moneylenders, along with mainstream politicians and administrators. Inspired by Mao's ideology, Majumdar advocated agrarian revolution in India achieved through armed struggle. He clearly believed that the country was ready for a peasant uprising. The 2010 Dantewada attack in Chhattisgarh exemplifies the movement's adoption of Maoist guerrilla tactics. In this incident, Naxalites successfully ambushed a CRPF convoy. They killed 76 paramilitary personnel through sophisticated tactics, including landmines, deceptive retreat strategies, etc. Of course, local informants helped. Maoist guerrilla warfare directly inspired these tactics or methods. The relationship between Naxalism and India's mainstream communist parties has been complex and often antagonistic. The Communist Party of India or CPI, aligned with the Soviet Union, consistently rejected violent insurgencies, instead advocating for gradual reforms through parliamentary means. The Communist Party of India Marxist, also known as CPIM, While initially sympathetic to some Naxalite grievances, strongly opposed their violent methods and eventually expelled Charu Majumdar and his followers. The CPIM's role is particularly noteworthy in West Bengal. There, its government in the 1970s launched powerful counterinsurgency operations against Naxalites. At the same time, CPIM governments in states like Kerala, Tripura, and West Bengal implemented land reforms that helped reduce peasant dissatisfaction and curb Naxalism's spread. The death of Charu Majumdar in police custody in 1972 led to the movement's fragmentation into various factions. The Communist Party of India, Marxist Leninist, emerged in 1969 as the first Naxalite political party. It split into multiple groups. Some factions like CPI-ML Liberation eventually abandoned violence and joined mainstream politics, while others maintained their radical stance. The most significant development came in 2004 with the formation of the Communist Party of India, Maoist, which emerged from the merger of major Naxalite groups. This organization has maintained the movement's militant approach, engaging in guerrilla warfare and targeting state infrastructure. Unlike its predecessors, it has shown no inclination towards joining the democratic processes. While Naxalism was significantly influenced by international communist movements, particularly Chinese Maoism, claims of direct foreign support remain largely unsubstantiated. There were no evidence of material support to them. During the late 1960s and early 1970s, Indian intelligence agencies suspected Chinese involvement, but no concrete evidence emerged. China's support remained largely ideological, expressed through state media outlets like Radio Beijing and People's Daily. The movement maintained ideological and limited operational ties with Maoist insurgents in Nepal, the Philippines, and Peru's Shining Path. However, after Nepal's Maoists joined mainstream politics following their decade long insurgency from 1996 to 2006, they cut off ties with Indian Naxalites. The impact of Naxalism on Indian society has been profound and multifaceted. In affected regions, particularly in central and eastern India, the movement created parallel governance structures, including people's courts or Jan Adalats. These structures have contributed to a complex dynamic of violence and social disruption. The villagers often get caught between Maoist forces and government security agencies. The government's response has evolved to include both security measures and development initiatives. Operation Green Hunt in 2009 represented a significant or powerful military offensive. It deployed specialized forces like the Commando Battalion for Resolute Action, also known as COBRA, and utilized modern surveillance technologies. At the same time, development programs like the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana and various skill development schemes attempted to address underlying socio-economic issues. Legislative measures have also played a crucial role. The Unlawful Activities Prevention Act has been used to ban Maoist affiliated groups. The Forest Rights Act of 2006 has attempted to address tribal land alienation grievances by granting legal and ownership rights to tribal communities. The economic impact of Naxalism has been severe in affected regions. Maoists frequently target infrastructure such as railways, highways, and mining operations, causing significant economic damage. Private sector investment in these areas remains minimal because of security concerns. This has severely limited employment opportunities and economic development. Politically, the movement has challenged state authority in remote regions. It has managed to expose administrative failures in governance, law enforcement, and economic development. Maoist boycotts of elections and attacks on political candidates have disrupted democratic processes in affected areas. What is worse, their parallel governance structures have undermined state legitimacy. Today, Naxalism remains a significant internal security challenge for India. Security operations have weakened the movement in many areas. However, the persistence of economic inequality, land disputes, and tribal rights issues continues to provide fertile ground for insurgency. The government's success in addressing these root causes while maintaining a balance between security measures and development initiatives will probably determine the future trajectory of the movement. A sustainable resolution to the Naxalite insurgency in India requires a multifaceted approach that goes beyond military action. Of course, effective law enforcement remains essential. Addressing the underlying socio-economic and political grievances fueling the movement can only achieve long-term peace. This calls for a well-rounded strategy that integrates security measures with meaningful development and inclusive governance. One of the most crucial aspects of this approach is the rehabilitation and reintegration of surrendered militants. Many individuals who join the Naxalite movement do so out of desperation, disillusionment, or coercion. Providing them with a structured path back into mainstream society through education, vocational training, and livelihood opportunities can prevent their return to militancy and also weaken the insurgency's recruitment base. It is equally important to ensure justice and economic opportunities for communities affected by the conflict. Poverty has badly affected these regions. People suffer from lack of basic services and systemic neglect. These regions require targeted development initiatives. To prevent the local people from joining the extremists, it is essential to facilitate access to education, healthcare, and employment. This will help address their long standing and deep seated grievances. Infrastructure development plays a pivotal role in fostering economic growth and connectivity in moist affected areas. Improved roads, electricity, and digital access will improve the quality of life for residents. These steps will also facilitate governance, trade, and investment. A well developed infrastructure can integrate these regions into the broader economy. Consequently, their isolation and vulnerability to insurgent influence will reduce dramatically. Governance at the grassroots level also needs careful nurturing. It is a fact that most of the Naxalite affected areas have large tribal populations. These populations have long felt alienated from the political mainstream and processes. It is vital to address their concerns. Their land rights need to be granted and protected. It is equally important to ensure their representation in decision making processes. This will build their trust in the state and reduce sympathy for insurgent groups. Only a well thought out, balanced strategy can destroy Naxalism permanently. This would require combining security efforts with genuine socio-economic development and political inclusion. The people of these affected regions deserve peace and stability. They are our fellow Indians or compatriots after all.